Good morning. It is 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. I'm Jose Díaz-Balart. It is caucus day in Iowa, the first major test for the Republican candidates. Our brand new poll shows former President Trump with a 30-point lead and Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis in a battle for second place. Also, sub-zero temperatures could make it the coldest caucus day in Iowa on record. Plus, our very own Steve Kornacki is at the big board tracking the storylines to watch and how the result tonight could impact next week's New Hampshire primary. Meanwhile, new accusations. Texas officials blocked border agents from saving a migrant woman and 2 children from drowning at the southern border. The White House calling it inhumane. And breaking overnight, another attack on American forces in the Red Sea. We have details on how the U.S. responded. We begin this hour with the very first contest of the 2024 race for the White House. Iowa caucus goers are preparing to brave some of the most bitter, piercing temperatures in recent memory, plunging as low as negative 18 degrees in Des Moines overnight. And new NBC News Des Moines Register Mediacom poll giving us a closer look at the enthusiasm gap going into tonight's caucuses. Nearly 9 in 10 Trump supporters say they are very enthusiastic about their candidate. That number is 62% among DeSantis supporters. Less than 4 in 10 likely caucus goers for Haley say the same thing. But despite favorable polling, Trump is urging his followers to get out and caucus for him, even if it's the last thing they do. And we'll have, of course, much more ahead from Iowa, including a breakdown of just how these caucuses actually work. Plus, coming up, border agents say Texas authorities blocked them from saving a migrant woman and 2 children who drowned trying to cross the Rio Grande. We're back in 60 seconds with how the Biden administration is ramping up its battle with Texas officials. You're watching Jose Díaz-Balart Reports on MSNBC. Up next, we're going to go back to Iowa to a super caucus location that could see more than 1,000 people turn out tonight. Plus, Steve Kornacki is here with what you need to watch for tonight as the candidates make their final push before the doors open. Steve, always a pleasure to see you, my friend. We'll chat in just a minute. You're watching Jose Díaz-Balart Reports on MSNBC. 24 past the hour, roughly 8.5 hours from right now, Iowans will gather at schools, churches, libraries, and other places across the state to decide who should be the Republican nominee for president this fall. The big question is whether bone-chilling cold will keep people away from the caucuses, which are held in person. With us now to look ahead to tonight's caucuses, NBC News national political correspondent Steve Kornacki and NBC News correspondent Jacob Soboroff in Iowa. So, Steve, what are you looking for this evening?
Yeah, a couple of different kinds of counties. Look, Iowa's got 99 of them here. 2 in particular, 2 types of counties here. Number one, evangelicals. They loom so large as a political force in Iowa Republican caucuses. The modern formula has been win the evangelical vote, you win the Iowa Republican caucuses. Mike Huckabee in 2008, Rick Santorum in 2012, Ted Cruz in 2016. 42 of the 99 counties in Iowa were Huckabee, Santorum, Cruz counties. Remember, Donald Trump lost Iowa in 2016, lost to Ted Cruz. One of the big reasons was evangelicals were not yet really on board with Donald Trump. So places that we're looking that fit that mold, a pretty big one in northwest Iowa is Sioux County. This was actually in 2016. I'll show you the results. It was a win for Ted Cruz. It was Donald Trump's worst county in Iowa in 2012. He only got 11% of the vote right here. So in counties like this, we want to see 2 things we're looking for tonight. Number one, has Trump improved? The poll certainly suggests he has. So maybe the question is, how much has Trump improved with evangelical voters since 2016? Polls indicate this is now a core part of his base. The county like Sioux and these other 41 Huckabee, Santorum, Cruz counties are going to tell that story. The second story they're going to tell is, does Ron DeSantis have a chance of pulling any kind of a surprise here tonight? Those counties, those heavily evangelical counties. He's gone after the evangelical vote hard. He's gotten endorsement from the sort of leader of the evangelical movement, political movement in Iowa. He has got to be making inroads in those counties if he's going to make any kind of a surprise tonight. The other kind of county, Jose, we're looking at tonight is different. It's more suburban, urban, higher income, a big concentration of college degrees. That profile I'm describing, that also was a rough one for Donald Trump in 2016. I'll give you an example here. Story County, this is where Ames is. Iowa State University, the Cyclones. This was also one of Donald Trump's worst counties in 2016. Look, 15% here. But look who won it in 2016. It was Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio was attracting those voters I was just describing there, higher income, college graduate, suburban, urban voters. Well, the polls suggest coming into tonight that the candidate who's making inroads there, Nikki Haley. So if Nikki Haley is going to make any noise tonight, you got to look at it. There's not that many in the state, but you look at Polk County. This is the granddaddy of them all. 17% of all the vote is going to come out of Polk County tonight. This was a Rubio County in 2016. How is Haley doing here? How is she doing in the big bedroom county of Dallas County, western suburbs of Des Moines? We showed you Story County. How about another one here? Johnson County. This is where the University of Iowa is. Iowa City, heavily Democratic, but there's a lot of population there. So again, if Haley, she wants to beat DeSantis for second, she wants to make a statement, those are the core counties to look at for Haley tonight. And again, the other question in them too is, has Donald Trump improved at all since 2016?
Yeah, and, you know, Jacob, covering Iowa caucuses over the years, it's been such a fascinating process to watch. It's not like you just show up and you vote for the candidate you want and then head home if you have to be there. But it's so, the process is lengthy, and it's really fascinating. You're at a high school that will serve as a caucus site for the entire county. How exactly will tonight's caucuses work there?
Yeah, it is incredible, Jose, because it's very different from the Democratic caucus process where everyone gathers in one room. And just on what Steve was talking about, this is one of these counties, Wapello County, where we're going to be seeing what margin Trump wins by this time compared to his win last year. And I'll get into more of that in a minute. But this is the auditorium at Ottumwa High School. It's an incredible high school. Everyone is going to gather from Wapello County at this super caucus location in this auditorium and listen to pitches from the campaigns before they actually go out and caucus. But where they caucus is not actually in this room. Come with me. I want to show you something. Here at Ottumwa High School, and you can see some of the teachers and faculty and staff are still here getting ready. It has been around since 1923. It is a beautiful building. Come down these stairs. The caucus itself doesn't take place in that auditorium. It takes place down in the classrooms. By the way, they just celebrated their 100-year anniversary. Shout out to the Bulldogs, a little Bulldog pride. When they come down these stairs, they're going to be looking for their actual precinct, Jose, and the precincts are in individual different classrooms. So you might be from all corners of Wapello County here in southeast Iowa, but everybody's going to meet here today. It might be as many as 1,000 people. Around 2016, they had, I think, something like 1,900 people show up here for the Super Caucus. So, for instance, you're going to go into classroom 120, which is a Spanish classroom, on a normal day. But on this night, it will be between the hours of 7 and around 9, a place where you're going to bring your ballot. If you are in this precinct, you're going to put in the ballot box, and they're going to tabulate the votes in this room for your precinct. But what happens next is even cooler. Come with me. So back, I was mentioning that this was a Trump county in 2016. Trump won, I think, and Steve can tell you better than I can, but I think 36% of the vote here and came out on top. What they're going to be looking for this time around is if that number goes up or if it goes down. Is he going to win 50% of the vote here in Wapello County, or might he win something a little bit less? It'll be indicative of how he's performing in these Trump stronghold counties throughout the state. Once they have all of that data from the different precinct level caucuses inside this building, they're going to bring it all down in here into the cafeteria, where there's going to be a giant whiteboard, Jose. They're going to take the results from the different classrooms and put them up on the whiteboard, tabulate the results for Wapello County, and then transmit those results back to the state Republican Party, where it'll ultimately come into the bigger picture here of who won the Iowa caucuses overall. It isn't a simple process. It's one people criticize because of that limited time period that people have to get here, but it is definitely unique to Iowa, and it's unique to our ununited states of America when it comes to the ways and days we vote, Jose.
Yeah, it's just the fascinating aspects of democracy, how it's represented in different ways in different states. And so, Jacob, when does it start and when does it end tonight?
So local time, people will start showing up here when the doors open, I think around 5:30. And then at 6:30, people are going to start to gather upstairs in that auditorium. At 7 o'clock local time, 8 o'clock on the East Coast, 5 o'clock out west, the actual speeches will start. Once those speeches start, people come down to the classrooms, as I mentioned. And by 9 o'clock, they hope to have results here at this location. I'm not going to get ahead of myself. We've seen what's happened in years past. That's the hope. Whether or not it's the reality, I think, are two different things.
Yeah, Steve, what are your thoughts on that? Because it's such it's so wonderful to see, and thank you, Jacob, for showing us physically what that process is going to look like. But Steve, it's just the unique aspect of our democracy, you know?
Yeah, it is, and it's. I also, I think, folks, one thing that's worth pointing out here too is the Iowa Democratic caucuses, and they're not happening tonight. The whole dispute with the DNC, it's a big thing. But traditionally, if you think of the Iowa Democratic caucuses and the Iowa Republican caucuses, these are different. These Republican caucuses are different. It's the Democratic caucuses where you line up in one corner of the room for one candidate, another corner of the room for the other candidate. They're trying to pull people from side to side. If you don't get 15% on the first vote, they have another. It's much more complicated on the Democratic side. This is everything Jacob just described, but when it comes to the actual voting in the caucus, it's a ballot. You check off a name, you put it in the box. It really is just an election at that point, so it's simpler from that standpoint.
Indeed, but you have to be there, and you have to show up to that high school, and you have to sit it out, and it's a fascinating, real process that is wonderful to see. Thank you, Jacob, and thank you, Steve, for bringing us those details. Really appreciate it. Up next, we'll talk about one specific group of voters critical to Republicans for tonight's Iowa caucuses and the rest of the country as well. You're watching Jose Díaz-Balart Reports on MSNBC. And 38 past the hour, we have these live pictures coming in from Philadelphia where President Biden is at a volunteer center there, of course, today remembering Martin Luther King Jr. Day and honoring that. There you see the President of the United States in Philadelphia live at this hour. Let's head on back to Iowa. And the countdown to tonight's First in the Nation caucuses. Just moments ago, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis talked with NBC's Hallie Jackson and said he's still in the race no matter what happens tonight.
You are not dropping out of this race tonight or tomorrow, no matter what. Fair?
We're going on. We've been built for the long haul. It's all about the accumulation of delegates. We're excited about tonight. I think that we put in the work, and I think you're going to see that.
57 past the hour. Any minute now, Vice President Harris is set to deliver remarks in Columbia, South Carolina. The Vice President appearing at the local NAACP's King at the Dome program on this Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Meanwhile, on the Republican side, as Iowans prepare to head to the caucuses, nearly every GOP candidate rejected an offer to participate in the nation's oldest minority-focused forum. Joining us now, NBC News campaign embed, Nnamdi Igwanwu. Nnamdi, it's good to see you. You sat down with organizers of the forum. What'd you learn?
Well, Jose, organizers say they feel Republicans blew a golden opportunity to engage with Black and Latino voters, not just in Iowa, but nationwide by attending this forum. It's been happening since 1984. They've had a ton of Democratic candidates turn out, but have never been able to get enough Republicans to commit to make the forum happen. And this year was no different. Only Ryan Binkley agreed to go, so they had to cancel again due to a low number of participants. Here's what organizers had to say about, again, canceling the forum.
It just throws us off. Yeah, we're past being disappointed because we feel as though we give them opportunity. When they come to Iowa, I don't care if we got one Black and two Hispanics. We are valuable people here. We come from this land. Our opinions and our questions just as important as white people. I didn't care if you were Republican or Democrat or independent. Because in our form, if you're independent, we're still going to ask you the same questions.
Yeah, Jose, exit polls since 2016 have shown that more Black and Latino voters have been supporting the Republican Party, and the caucus falls on MLK Day. Because of those two reasons, organizers thought this cycle would be different, but no one turned out, and they're hoping next year, maybe next election cycle, they'll be able to finally bring a Republican forum to fruition.
Nnamdi Igwanwu, I thank you so very much. It's good to see you. That wraps up the hour for me. I'm Jose Díaz-Balart. You can always reach me on social media at JD Balart, and you can watch clips from our show on YouTube at msnbc.com/JDB. Thank you for the privilege of your time. Andrew Mitchell picks up with more news right now.